Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'd like to start with a question. Have you ever known exactly what you wanted to say, but found it hard to communicate in a short, clear way? Instead of getting straight to the point, you end up explaining it in detail. For instance, you might say, "He really cares about how others see him and whether they like him. He wants approval from people and likes hearing that he's done well."
There's nothing wrong with explaining it like that. It's normal, especially if you don't know or can't recall a word that sums the idea up in just a couple of words. But in this case, such a word actually exists: people pleaser. Instead of giving the long explanation, I could have said he's a people pleaser. Using that term immediately communicates the whole idea. And again, just to be clear, my original description wasn't incorrect. But if you want to be more concise and precise, knowing shorthand words that pack a full meaning is extremely useful. They also give you alternative ways to express your thoughts. So in today's video, we're going to look at vocabulary for describing people, how they think, behave, work, and interact with others. If you enjoy this kind of content, I can create more videos in the same style and explore different topics. Just tell me in the comments. Also, let's add a little challenge. In the comments below, write a brief description of yourself using some of the new words you learned. What type of person are you? 1. Someone who digs too deeply into situations and overanalyzes everything is called an overthinker. Overthinkers replay things in their mind until it becomes stressful. Do you ever catch yourself endlessly going over something you said or did? Do you second-guess your decisions and imagine every possible outcome? If yes, you might be an overthinker. Or maybe you know someone who tends to think too much in ways that aren't helpful. For instance, perfectionists often fall into the category of overthinkers. 2. A person who always speaks honestly and directly is called a straight shooter. Straight shooters are open and frank. They say exactly what they think. They won't gossip behind your back, and they'll give you their true opinion about your ideas, plans, or even your appearance. Ask them if you look good in a dress, and they'll answer simply yes or no, without sugarcoating too much. If you're someone who doesn't hide your feelings and avoids vague hints, you might be a straight shooter. Many people value straight shooters because life feels simpler when people are direct. For example, imagine you have a coworker named Tom who is a straight shooter. If someone asks whether you like working with him, you can honestly say, "Yes, I do." You never have to guess what Tom really thinks. 3. What do you call someone who always wants everything to be perfect and sets the highest possible standards? That person is a perfectionist. I think we all know what perfectionists are like. They expect everything to be flawless. They hold themselves to very high standards and want every detail to be just right. Nothing ever feels good enough unless it's perfect. For example, you might say, "My friend is a perfectionist. She spent 2 days planning a simple dinner because she wanted everything to be perfect." 4. What's a single word to describe someone who works constantly and finds it hard to stop? That person is called a workaholic. This term is familiar in many cultures. A workaholic is someone who works excessively and struggles to take a break. Just like an alcoholic has an unhealthy dependence on alcohol, a workaholic has an unhealthy obsession with work. Wanting to work might seem harmless, but for some people, it becomes a real problem. A workaholic often arrives at the office early and leaves late. They may struggle to relax, and many neglect family and friends because work takes priority. For example, you could say, "Vacations stress him out more than work does because he's a workaholic." 5. Some people are determined to make things happen exactly the way they want, and often try to get others to do the same. What do you call someone like that? They're often called control freaks. A control freak is a person who needs everything to be done their way. They like to control situations and people, and they feel uncomfortable when things don't go as planned. Do you know anyone who wants to be in charge of every situation? Those people are control freaks.
The term usually has a negative meaning, but it can also be used in a playful or lighthearted way about yourself or your family. For example, you might say, "I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to cleaning. I just like everything in its place." Or, "My sister is a control freak in the kitchen. She doesn't let anyone touch her pots or cutting board." 6. What's a single word for someone who thinks they know more than everyone else? Think of someone like Hermione Granger from Harry Potter.
That person is called a know-it-all. Know-it-alls often act as if they always have the right answer. They believe they know everything and rarely take advice or information from others.
They also tend to correct everyone around them. If you work in an office, you probably know one or two colleagues who constantly jump in to correct others during meetings. They're know-it-alls. The same happens at school. There are always students who answer before the teacher finishes the question. Those students are know-it-alls too. Great! Now let's move on to the 7th word. 7. Do you know anyone who loves parties and social events? Someone who enjoys being around people and is usually liked by everyone. Someone who mingles easily but doesn't always form deep connections. You can call that person a social butterfly. A social butterfly is naturally friendly and outgoing. These people know how to attract attention in a positive way and can connect with all kinds of people. The term comes from the idea of a butterfly. They can land anywhere and move easily from one group to another. Social butterflies are often extroverted and enjoy meeting new people. In American English, calling someone a social butterfly is mostly positive. It describes someone outgoing, friendly, and sociable. At most, it might sound a little teasing, but it's not negative. For example, you could say about a coworker, "Our new colleague is a social butterfly. She's already made friends with everyone in the office." 8. Someone who prefers staying at home rather than going out is called a homebody. If you'd rather spend Saturday night at home with your cat than go to a crowded party, you might call yourself a homebody. This term describes anyone who usually chooses the comfort of their own home over social outings. Homebodies are sometimes seen as less adventurous. For example, if someone invites you on a trip to Morocco, you might say, "No thanks, I'm a bit of a homebody." While most people feel comfortable at home, homebodies feel especially happy, safe, and content there. Fun fact, the first recorded use of this North American word was in 1821. 9. Someone who is determined, acts quickly, or moves forward in their career at a fast pace is called a go-getter. Go-getters don't wait for opportunities, they create them. They make things happen, which is why their careers often progress rapidly. They're energetic, ambitious, and willing to take on new or challenging situations. You can think of them as people who go after what they want, which is exactly where the term comes from. For example, you might describe someone as a true leader and a real go-getter, someone who lives life boldly, but responsibly. You'll also see this word in phrases like go-getter energy or go-getter attitude. For instance, she heard about the opening and sent in her application right away. Real go-getter energy. Or, I initially hesitated, but with my new go-getter attitude, I ended up planning a trip to see the match in person. 10. Who is someone who reads a lot? That person is called a bookworm. I can definitely call myself a bookworm, and I'm also a fast reader. Give me a free afternoon, and I can finish half a book. Bookworms are people who truly love reading. A true bookworm would often prefer spending Friday night on the couch with a good book rather than going to a party. Some people are bookworms from the moment they first learn to read, while others develop a love for reading after discovering a particularly amazing book. Many of my students have experienced this. Once they find a book they really enjoy, they start reading more and more, and reading becomes a passion. Fun fact, the word bookworm originally referred to insects that infest and eat paper, including book pages. You might say, I spent the entire bus ride reading, complete bookworm. And that's a wrap for today's episode. We've covered 10 words you can use to describe different types of people, from overthinkers and people pleasers to bookworms and go-getters. I hope these words help you express yourself more clearly and give you some fun ways to talk about the people around you. Remember, expanding your vocabulary isn't just about learning new words. It's about being able to describe thoughts, feelings, and personalities more precisely. Try using some of these words in your conversations this week and see how much easier it becomes to get your ideas across. Don't forget to share your examples in the comments. Describe yourself or your friends using these new words. I'd love to see what you come up with. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, the more words you know, the more power you have to express yourself. See you next time.